also known as Zen and the Art of Changing Conversation. Roger Goodell's Don Draper performance. Also, I'm taking bets on the Lakers starting five next year. LeBron, Kyrie, AD, Klay Thompson, Kobe Bryant. Who's with me?
I'll take
They're with me. Let's go.
I'll take the bet.
Mamba mentality.
Come on. I mean, at this point, he'll just have his Achilles replaced by a wild animal's Achilles. Just give him a cheetah Achilles, and he's here to go.
Ball's not going to like that.
We understand the frustration of the fans, but we also know our officials are human. We also know that they're officiating a game that moves very quickly and have to make snap decisions under difficult circumstances. And they're not going to get it right every time. We will look again at instant replay. It does not cover judgment calls. This was a judgment call. My role is to make sure that the competition committee understands that this is critical for us to analyze, to evaluate, and try to see if there's a better solution than what we have today.
National panel, you never get a second chance to make a first impression 10 days after a missed call. Frank Isola, how do you think Roger Goodell did?
Well, his answer was satisfactory to me. I would think that the people in New Orleans, the organization, the fans aren't going to like it, but what he said made a lot of sense. Yes, we agree with you. It was a bad call, or a bad non-call. It's not the first one in the history of the sport. I think what makes this one look really bad is not only pass interference, it was helmet to helmet, but guess what? It happens. The Saints are not the first team that this has ever happened to. They won't be the last.
And you think the NFL can capably move on now?
Well, why not? It's about the Super Bowl this week. I think, the first year that the Patriots made it, it wasn't about, with the Brady era, it wasn't about the Tuck rule. All right, you move on to the Super Bowl. Every team in the league could point to certain plays that have gone against them in crucial times in a playoff.
Clinton Yates, can the NFL move on now?
I think so. I was actually, dare I say, somewhat impressed with Roger Goodell in this situation because he told the truth. He said straight up, we botched it, and this is what happens when you have human beings who are referees. This is what football is. And it could have gone many different ways. He didn't dodge it. He basically came out and said, yeah, we got to find a way to do better, which is exactly correct going forward. I think he actually did pretty well.
Israel Gutierrez, can the NFL and football fans move on?
I mean, yeah, they can and they should, but this is what I was saying before when everybody was clamoring for Roger Goodell to come out and speak. He was just going to say what we already know. He wasn't going to come out and say, hey, these are my firm suggestions for the competition committee, and this is what we should do. He's putting it in the hands of the others who, and frankly, they're in charge of that. That is the competition committee's issue. That's what they're in charge of doing. And so, yeah, he just kind of lays it out there and says this is what happened. But again, this is what we already knew. He sort of didn't really ease anybody or soothe anybody with what he said.
Page?
Move on. We'll never move on, Tony. I mean, we haven't moved on from Deflategate. We're still talking about the Tuck rule this week. I mean, you never move on. You can't, as you always say, you can't write the history of the NFL without mentioning that call in the game in the NFC Championship. Clinton, I got to totally disagree with you. He said plenty of nothing today. Really? You got something out of all that? He said, oh, yeah, the call was blown. But you know how he said it? That they called Sean Payton and told him. I mean, I didn't know that Sean Payton was a representative of the National Football League. He's the one that had to announce it to us. I think that they could have done a better job, been more transparent, and I thought all his issues that he addressed today, he didn't really say much of anything. Okay. I now know more about China, London, and Mexico City than I wanted to know.
Clinton Yates, you want to respond to Woody?
Yeah, I mean, he was responding to the question he was asked. Listen, I am not one of the people who was up in arms about the non-call and the results of the game to begin with, so I didn't need him to be addressing this as if it was some matter of state secrets. It wasn't that big of a deal at this point of the NFL timeline.
Israel Gutierrez?
So I think what he did now made sense.
I mean, he was doing his best job of PR. If you remember the Kaepernick question about the performances in the Super Bowl, he strictly went to commenting about the artists that are already there and not really discussing the question. This was classic Goodell, but what else? What were you going to expect?
Yeah, I would just like to say that you never dress the helmet to helmet. They're so concerned about security. Why in the world isn't there an eye in the sky? Forget the pass interference for a moment. That judges helmet to helmet so they can take care of that problem, which they've
an eye in the sky. All right. Sounds like Woody's been spending some time in Vegas. Where are we on pass interference being reviewed, by the way? Is the league moving in that direction or not? I'm confused by that. Frank?
Well, if you hear people talk, they say once the competition committee gets to look at it, by then they might say, you know what, we don't need more replay. But why not have it where not just pass interference, but give coaches a chance to replay or to review certain plays during the game? For example, I would think the Kansas City Chiefs would want the roughing the passer call that went against them reviewed. And obviously pass interference as well. Why not give each coach 1 or 2 per game certain plays that they can review?
Clinton, do you get the read that the league is moving closer to reviewing pass interference or further away
I think they're getting closer to it, but I don't love it because you put yourself in a situation where if you're looking at replays and you see one penalty that you're reviewing and there's another, are you going to call that one? How are we going to do this if that's the system that you're going to implement? Also, I don't need more flags in NFL football games, plainly. They're already broken up enough as it is. There's too much replay. Games take too long. You know, I don't think this is a good idea from a competition standpoint as a viewer and a fan.
Gutierrez?
It's a little bit too difficult to sort of foresee the idea of these judgment calls and which ones can be challenged, which ones can't be. I think you could add more officials to the booth, right? They do in college, they replay every game. You could add more replay officials that just look for certain calls. You're in charge of PIs. And if something is absolutely egregious, you say, hang on a second, let me review this, or let's review this and let's look this over. So I just think there's different answers. I don't think there's anything that's obvious.
And Woody?
Israel is absolutely correct, but you also, in addition to what you said, Israel, add 2 more officials on the football field. College football has 8 officials, NFL 7. Baseball during the World Series adds and playoffs adds 2 more officials. Why don't you do that? And also, you do have those, as an eye in the sky would be 2 guys in the press box who are looking at offense and defense throughout the game and can automatically call for a recall.
I hear you, Woody Page. The one interesting thing, and Clinton, you brought this up, you see this in basketball games. In March Madness, this happens every year. They're reviewing who it went out on, and then they're seeing that somebody punched somebody in the face, and that's why the ball went out of bounds. And you're like, what are we supposed to do here? As far as moving on, as Frank and Clinton have advised, Sean Payton, in his most recent public appearance today, the shirt under the shirt. A lot of people think it's the Goodell clown shirt that Barstool and the Patriots popularized. Is that what you see? And if so, how would you review this whole visual?
I mean, I don't know how you can unsee that or you can see anything different. It seems to be that's what he's wearing. And, you know, he talked about how he was in a cave eating ice cream and watching Netflix for 3 days. I think he got a little confused as to who he's mad at. Like, it's not Roger Goodell's fault that the officials blew this call, and he wasn't going to be able to replay the game. So why, if he's doing this on purpose, is he taking it out on Goodell? It just seems like it's kind
Clinton,
of
are you really making a statement if it's under the shirt you're wearing?
Right, not exactly, although I do appreciate his zipper game, you know, coming down just enough to give you a peek. But if you're going to wear the daggone thing, why don't you just come on out and give us the gun show and let everybody know what you think? But Izzy's right. This isn't Goodell's fault. He's not the one who didn't throw the flag. What are you doing?
All right, we'll move on. Rams, here's the story and a headline I love. Rams are acting like they haven't been to the Super Bowl before. Who wrote it? Bill Plaschke, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, 4 Rams with Super Bowl experience, 36 Patriots. It's almost like LA could think people could hashtag bet against us, while hashtag do their job, while hashtag they're still here, even though here is a place they've yet to arrive. Woody, I come to you for experience. How big of a deal is the Rams' lack of experience here and, of course, the Patriots' experience?
Well, Bill, act like it right, like you've been to the Super Bowl before. I've been there with you. So I would just say this, Bill. I'm reaching out to you. You have to go back all the way to last year when a team that had never been to the Super Bowl won the Super Bowl. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks went to the Super Bowl. Act like you've been there before. They hadn't. They won it. I mean, it goes back years and years that teams often have never played there before. I think the Rams are prepared. They got a defensive coordinator that was there 3 years ago with the Broncos. They got Aqib Talib. C.J. Anderson, who has become a star lately again, was a 100-yard rusher in a Super Bowl in 2015. I don't think it matters one bit once the game starts. Maybe during the week they're wide-eyed about going around and seeing all the press conferences and all the Super Bowl preparation, but once the game starts, it won't matter a bit.
You know it's a slow Super Bowl week when we're talking about a call from the championship games and then the experience storyline, which obviously seems like it's right there for you. And this, no offense, Bill, but it's right there for you with this Super Bowl. I don't think necessarily, like what he said, all the experience and all the sort of wide-eyed issues are going to be a problem for them. I do think that just getting adjusted to Bill Belichick and his game plan. Next thing you know, you could be the Kansas City Chiefs and scoreless at halftime, and you're like, what just happened here? It's not about getting adjusted to the Super Bowl and all the lights and the fans. It's getting adjusted to that man and that team who know what they're doing.
Yeah, I'd argue, I mean, at this point, it might be somewhat of an advantage. They at least understand what's going on around them in terms of getting up for this moment, and it's not happening on game day. It's happening on Wednesday, which is what you're supposed to be doing and why you have the entire week leading up. This is not an issue for me at all. I mean, sure, there's the on-the-field matter, but again, like what he said, once the whistle blows and the game starts, it's really no different than any other football game.
Well, I agree with Izzy. I think, we've all been there. We have 2 weeks off before you have to write about something. So Bill came up with this. Here is where the Rams grew up. They were down 13-0 in New Orleans on the road for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. They won that game. And real quickly on Sean Payton with the shirt. Did he say that about Roger Goodell 10 years earlier when they got away with all those late hits on Brett Favre and they got to go to the Super Bowl? You know what? For the Saints, move on.
Frank Isola had it in the back pocket.
Bringing it.
That's experience. That's because Frank's got experience. This isn't the first time. He acts like he's been here before. Yeah. All right, we've been home. We're taking a break. Super Bowl halftime guests. They always put on a midweek press conference. Remember Prince when he did this? He was melting faces. Well, Maroon 5 didn't this year. NFL posted an incredibly long release to say press conference is canceled. Maroon 5 wants to show on Sunday what they do. Let Sunday do the talking. Is that something or nothing right here?
Awkward.
It's a
Buy or sell
Even
next
you
on the
two
other
gave
side.
an interview.
It's a big nothing.
Coming to you from the Seaport District at Pier 17.
Buy or sell portion of the program. Take a look at the scores. Isola 13, Yates 11, Gutierrez 12, and a Woody Page vortex in the lead with 18. Buy or sell one, self-tampering. Honestly, that's never happened before. Anthony Davis fined $50,000. Woody Page, buy or sell the fine, and whether it's enough to stop future tamperers.
Oh, sure. It's 0.2% of his salary. It's like you or me getting a parking ticket for $6. It makes no sense. Why don't they go after the agent? They have to be approved by the NBA. He has violated Section 35. Why don't you suspend his agent, Rich Paul, for 6 months or accuse the Lakers of tampering and suspend them for a while?
Israel Gutierrez?
It is interesting that Rich Paul went this way because he knew the rules. He knows that public request for a trade is going to get him a fine. So it's almost like they thought this thing through and decided that, hey, we can maybe fast track this by just getting it out there, no backdoor channels, none of that other stuff, and just put it out there. But obviously $50,000 isn't going to deter him much because the idea of a supermax in New Orleans isn't necessarily going to even keep him there. Right. So how's $50,000?
It's almost like they didn't care about the tampering charge. Clinton Yates, how about you?
That's why I'm selling all of this. I mean, listen, if you ask most NBA fans, do they really actually care if guys talk about where they want to go and not? Probably not. This is not that big of a deal. The fine is nothing. I don't have a huge problem with that. It doesn't affect the competitive balance as much as they claim.
It was a $50,000 advertisement. I will say this, they played last night, and when the story broke, Anthony Davis took his team out to dinner on Monday. Then he sat on the bench. Remember, Kawhi Leonard was detached. He basically wasn't with the team. Late in the game, Anthony Davis joined the timeout huddle, when the coaches first meet, and he's talking to Alvin Gentry. And all I could think of is, how can Alvin Gentry, he'd had every right to look at him and say, really? You want to help out? How about putting a uniform on? Stay a while. That'll really help us out.
He's injured at the moment, but I understand what you're saying. All right, we'll move on. The Rick Bucher report about Kyrie Irving open to reuniting with LeBron. Genuinely interested in reuniting with LeBron. For real. Israel, you buying or selling the Kyrie rumor du jour, which sounds delicious, by the way?
I mean, I don't love this narrative because really what I love is the idea that Kyrie did want to do it by himself. Sorry about that. Did want to do it on his own and lead a team in Boston. And I think he has shown that he is at least, upper crust, top of the, didn't say elite, top of the league, right? And so now he's like, well, maybe if I go to Los Angeles, it's not Cleveland. It's not LeBron's team. And LeBron's going to retire. So eventually it will be my team. It will be Anthony Davis's team as well.
Upper crust sounds delicious as well. Clinton Yates, how about you?
It is.
That's exactly why I'm selling it. I mean, there's so many different things coming out of the Kyrie camp. What is the problem with the team you're on right now? If I'm a Boston fan, again, just focus on what you're doing. Who cares what you're doing with LeBron later or whether or not you're re-signing this, that, or the third? You should be focused on winning the NBA title. You played the Warriors close last week. You can do this.
Frank Isola?
Remember when LeBron kept calling him the kid? So now the kid who left LeBron and went to join Boston is now going to rejoin the Lakers and play with LeBron? I find that hard to believe.
You find it hard to believe. The last week, Frank, I mean, when the report came out that he had talked to LeBron, when he allowed that report to come out, some people thought that was just PR. Now what is this?
Hey, nothing would surprise you. By the way, the night of the deadline, Anthony Davis could be moved. The Lakers are in Boston playing the Celtics. How interesting is that going to be?
Okay, yeah, I think that is going to be interesting. I'll give you points. That is interesting.
Thank you.
Woody Page, how about you?
I'm selling it, but what do you expect from a mouth-breathing flat earther who can't decide whether he wants his own team or he wants to go back to being the second guy? Forget about his camp. I tell my camp, I do my talking. He needs to come out and say, I want to stay here. I'm concentrating on being here. Why is he not doing that?
NBA odds makers here. Odds that LeBron and Kyrie are reunited next year. Frank Isola from 0% to 100.
10%.
Clinton Yates?
25.
Israel Gutierrez?
$1.
Woody Page?
12%.
We'll move on. Baseball. Peter Moylan. Check out this tweet. The Henry Mejia, with a near lifetime ban. We thought it was lifetime. Apparently it's not lifetime. Got signed before he did, okay? And here's the all unsigned team. Jason Stark put this together. I mean, I think that team wins 75 games at least, maybe 80, maybe more. Clinton, what are you buying? What are you selling here?
First of all, buying Mejia's hair. He's got one of the best lids of lettuce we've got in the entirety of the game. Buying this tweet as well. This is very funny. Selling this notion that you can somehow get a lifetime ban and then come back and play. It's not like the guy died.
But what are we looking at here, Clinton? I mean, you're our resident baseball reporter. You go to all the winter meetings and all this. What are we looking at here when it's not just Machado and Bryce Harper? Understandably, they want $250 million. But Peter Moylan and Evan Gattis and guys like that are out of work.
It's a similar situation to what it was last year. You know, guys just decide they don't want they don't want to set the market for what every player thinks it should be. I don't have a huge issue with this. Every guy doesn't deserve a gazillion dollars just because they thought that they had said it the year before. Look, if you're me, Bryce Harper created his market already. Machado kind of did the same in the World Series. This isn't a big issue.
Frank Isola.
Less money, play baseball.
You know, I mean, Tony, you mentioned Bryce Harper, you're mentioning Machado. I think it's such a bad look for baseball. Here we are, we're about to play the Super Bowl, and two of the biggest players in the sport are unsigned. When does this ever happen? Usually this stuff is taken care of in December, maybe January. Here we are late January, both guys still without it.
Well, you could understand if there's a market correction, Woody Page, for those guys, again, who are commanding $250 million and throwing off the trajectory of a team for the next 10 years, 5 years. But for the guys like Peter Moylan, you read his tweet, Woody, buy or sell it.
No, I'm buying the tweet. I'm selling this. I thought lifetime would at least be, it's like bread. I mean, bread, is this lasted about as long as bread does in the refrigerator? I don't know why in the world that Mejia can come back to the league this quickly. And I don't know why in the world you would pick those two guys who don't know how to act. They've never been to the showdown. Act like you've been there before, guys.
Israel Gutierrez on baseball.
Bread in the refrigerator.
Why are you putting your bread in the fridge? That's something that I always question when I go to somebody else's house and it's in the fridge. I'm not sure. But I'm just hung up on this whole steroid suspension as well, because the first time he had the anabolic steroid in him said he didn't know how it got in him. And by the third time, it was a steroid that's normally used in horses, and yet he can come back and get reinstated after a few years. Why? Because he's a relief pitcher that nobody really knows about. It's only going to cost the team about $600,000.
Who knows about the horse steroids? Maybe people notice those horse steroids because you have such a full mane, Clinton Yates. Yes. Page Gutierrez going the wrong way. Frank Isola, Clinton Yates.
Horse steroids for course steroids.
Oh, please, don't start with
Good
that
line,
again.
Tony.
Showdown next. Let's go around the horn. Isola, 3 straight showdowns. Clinton Yates, good luck to you both. Showdown 1, we go to Jack Edwards with the call.
Oh, look at him go. Welcome to Boston, Trent Frederick.
And the first career game and first career fight for Trent Frederick last night. That went down. His parents were on hand to see it. His parents whipped on the high five, fist pump, or punch. I don't know what that exactly was doing there. Promising start for the rookie, or are you questioning the parents there a little bit, Clinton?
First of all, the best part about this was easily the high five. I don't really care about guys fighting in their debut. Come on, Dad. You've got to see when your wife is extending the hand for the high five, you come out of the fist and don't embarrass her on TV. What are you doing?
Think about the week in Boston, though. You have the Patriots playing in the Super Bowl. The guy's becoming a cult hero in his first game. I will say this, though. Thank God it wasn't the NBA and they had this fight, because then we'd probably have to blame it on rap music or something like that. Hockey, you're allowed to get
They lost the skate, too. So,
yeah. Listen to Isola. This is how he's been in 3 straight showdowns. He's just throwing haymakers today. We'll move on. Check this out. End of game last night. Russell Westbrook standing out of bounds, maybe to avoid getting the ball and the turnover for the shot clock violation. And then the referee calls him for the turnover, standing out of bounds on purpose. That's in the rule book. Frank, what happened here? And who's most foul? Westbrook, the ref, or the rule?
I love what the referee did here. And, you see this all the time with these unwritten rules now in basketball. There was more than 24 seconds left. Shoot the ball. You're not disrespecting anybody. He deserved that turn.
Yeah, what are we doing here? Why does Westbrook not want to get involved here? You're that concerned about your stat line that you're going to leave the court of play?
Oh, yeah.
In order to get there? That is Bush League, man. Come on.
Are you familiar with the oeuvre of Russell Westbrook, Clinton? Yes,
Absolutely.
He is
It's
that
lame,
concerned
is what I'm
about the
saying.
line. Frank, I saw the ice generation, the ice age. 30 seconds.
Lucky. Well, Houston Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson, he's not in the Super Bowl. Who knows? Maybe one day he will get there. But he is making news during Super Bowl week for all the right reasons. When he was 11 years old, he and his family moved into a home built for him by Habitat for Humanity in Gainesville, Georgia. Here he is 12 years later in that same home that he remodeled for his mom, who's a cancer survivor. So just think about what that home ownership meant to him and his family. Deshaun Watson, a great guy, great quarterback, great story.
Good story, Frank. All right, Woody Page, I deducted points because you used mouth breather, an expression I dislike. It's good to see you're a nostril breather. That's very good. See you tomorrow.